Good afternoon and welcome to the U.S. Embassy Facebook Live program on student visas. We're here this afternoon to spend the next hour talking with all of our Facebook friends about the student visa process and what is necessary to apply to be a student in the United States and to go through the interview process in order to get a visa and go to study. So my name is Debbie.
My name is Alyssa.
And we are consular officers. So if you come in for an interview, you may very well see one of us for your interview. And as we get started, what we want to do first is give you all some facts and figures about student visas in Nigeria and about who you are out there. And there are a lot of you. Nigeria is the #1 country in Africa to send students to the United States. And of course, Nigeria is a large country with lots of people and lots of young people. And 1/3 of the students coming from Africa to the United States, to our colleges and universities, come from Nigeria. And then when you look at it outside of Africa, and you look at the whole rest of the world, right? The #1 country, I believe, is China. And then after that's India. But Nigeria is the 12th ranking of all of the countries in the world who send students to the United States. And that's at all levels, whether it's a bachelor's degree, associate's degree, or master's and PhD level work. So that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
We are here and that Nigeria is sending the #1 amount of students from Africa to the US.
And that number is growing too. During the 2016-2017 school year, it was almost 12,000 students, which was up 10% from the previous school year. So the number of students from Nigeria is also growing. They are at 1,000 different schools in more than 50, well, in all 50 states and some US territories as well. So there's Nigerian students all over the US.
All over the US. And there are 5 states where most of the students go to. And those 5, in descending order, first of all would be Texas. So we see lots of students going to schools in Houston and Dallas, Texas. New York State, so students going there. The state of Florida, of course, everybody likes to go to Florida because it's warm. And then on the other hand, we have a lot of students going up where it's cold, up north, up to Massachusetts, particularly into the Boston area, which has an incredible number of colleges. And then to Maryland. They're near Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area, where there are a lot of Nigerians living already, and a lot of people have friends and family there. So those are the top 5 states receiving college students from Nigeria.
So it's getting close to the start of the next school year, and we have had a lot of students applying, and lots of them in a hurry to get school in the U.S. since it's about to start. So we've introduced a Saturday interview time, and there's a couple spots left, correct?
Yes, we did a Super Saturday about a month and a half ago. Lagos has done 2 Super Saturdays, the last 2 Saturdays for people from that area. And then we are doing a Student Super Saturday, SSS, this Saturday, and that's August the 11th. There are still spots available, and if they get full, we're monitoring that every day. So if they get full, we'll make more available to you so that we can try and get everybody in. And yes, that's one thing to be aware of, is because we have so many students applying, 12,000 students is a lot. We are trying to process those applications just as quickly as we possibly can. But if you have not yet gotten your interview time, get an interview time and get in here because schools are getting ready to start. Yes, and you want to talk about what they need when they get off of the airplane and that letter idea?
Yes, so when you enter the US, you'll need a couple things in addition to your visa and your passport. You will need your original I-20 form, which says what school you're studying at, how you're going to pay for it, just your basic kind of student information. And if you are arriving later than you planned, you might also need a letter from the school stating that you can arrive, the time you can arrive has been extended.
Right, exactly. And we're trying to get the visas processed once they're accepted so that that doesn't happen, but just in case, and we can touch on that again later as to what you need for that. Okay, so that's kind of our general background. on the process, and we can start taking questions now. The first question we have is, what is the process and requirement, and how much is the student visa fee? It's not really a student visa fee. What the application fee is for, it's the same fee as if you're applying for a B visa. It's an application and interview process fee. You're not paying for the visa, you're paying to go through and have your application reviewed, paying for the interview with the officer, and going through that process. And that fee is $160 American, and that's same as it would be for a B, same as for anything else. And then the process, you have to go online. It's all online. If you can't do it online, you can't do it. ustraveldocs.com/NG for Nigeria. And everything is explained there. You can also take a look at travel.state.gov, has good information. You go through the whole application process. It's very important that when you fill out that application, everything is correct. Make sure that you fill it out, that you don't have some other person fill it out for you, because the information that's on there, you are responsible for. It's your application. So go through and really look at that form, make sure it is correct, and make sure that you've done everything properly. And then once you apply with the form, then you get your interview date and time. So it should all be pretty detailed on the online form.
So it looks like we have our first question. Emmanuel wrote us and said that he applied last year and got denied twice. He got a scholarship this year and was denied again. So we can't talk about specific cases, but we can talk about in general what we're looking for when students come for their interviews, what we want to see. Congratulations on the scholarship. As he stated, he applied multiple times, so if you're denied, you are allowed to apply again. And sometimes your information changes. Maybe you are going to a different school, or maybe you have different funding than you had the previous time that you applied. So you are always welcome to reapply. And it's really good to come prepared with the information that we need. So the first one would be proof of financial support. We need a original document showing that you can pay for the full cost of your tuition for your first year. So that is bank statements, scholarship letters, whatever it is, proving that you can pay the amount that your I-20 lists as the amount for tuition, fees, and living expenses for your school. We might also need to see transcripts, grades, especially if you've already been in school in the US, so you can prove that you are in good standing and that you've been attending classes like you say you have. And then we need you to be prepared to talk about your plans, both for your studies, what you want to study, why you're interested, and what you plan to do when you're finished. And we don't expect everyone to know everything about what they'll do the rest of their lives, but to speak kind of about what their interests are and what they hope to do with the degree once they're finished.
Right. Yep, that's the key thing. And again, we can't speak to specific cases, but you need to be able to fully, not 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour worth of discussion, but you need to be able to give us in a few sentences, concisely, why you want to go to X college, college X, how you picked college X, what you're going to major in, why that major makes sense for you, what you've done to prepare to go to that school and that major. And that could be a variety of things. It also could include the fact that you have taken the U.S. Achievement Test, if you've taken the SAT test, if you've taken the TOEFL test. Be prepared to discuss those, what your scores were, why you did well, what you could have done better. Everybody's not perfect, and we understand that. But what you did well, how that relates to now what you want to study. Whether you want to study political science. What else have we seen? We've seen chemistry majors, political science majors. What else have we seen? Social work majors. We've seen social work. What else? Engineering. And the idea is that you have a major that works for you and that you are able to talk to us about what you want to do, what you're going to do when you come home, because that's an important part, where you think you might work.
And I've seen some questions, people asking if your chances are better or worse depending on the subject that you're studying. your odds are not better because you're studying medicine versus literature. I feel like I have seen every applicant studying every subject, and the subject of your degree is not what qualifies you for the visa. So
Right. No, the subject is not. The thing is that the subject has to make sense for you, and you have to have a plan, and you have to be able to articulate that plan to us, what you're going to study and how you're going to do it. We have another question from Abdul that also says they were denied a few months ago, and they think it was an error on the I-20. Well, as we just said a minute ago, you are responsible. You're the only one responsible for the information on your I-20. So you do need to make sure it's correct before you submit it. Don't have a visa, application preparer person do that. You are the one that is responsible to make sure that that is correct. And if you think you've got something wrong on your I-20 when you go for the interview, you're welcome to tell us that. And we do have people that have said that. They said, "Oh, I left off the fact that my brother is already in the U.S. as a student." And that's fine. Just let us know if you've left something off. But do your best to try to make it accurate and as complete as possible. So you want to read the next question?
Yeah, it looks like the next question is about age limits. What is the age limit to apply for a first degree in the U.S. and what are the chances of getting a visa for a first degree course in the U.S. after having one here in Nigeria? As far as age limits, there is not, you can't be too old to go to college. If the college will accept you, that's the first step. Then you are eligible for the visa for college, university. And if you
already have a degree here.
Yes, we have seen people who maybe are going for a second master's degree. In those cases, it would definitely be important to be able to describe why you're going for a second degree at the same level. Occasionally somebody says they got their first degree, but then in their current job, they are waiting for a promotion and they can't get that without the degree. And that kind of information is helpful to know why somebody might go back for a second master's degree or a second bachelor's degree, maybe in a different subject than they studied before.
Right. Yeah, and again, there's all kinds of versions of people going to college, from PhD to language studies to associate's degree, and all of those are fine on the F visa. The idea is the program has to make sense, and you have to be able to present credibly to us why it makes sense for you, that you will go and study, and most importantly, return home after your study here in Nigeria to use your education for the benefit of your family and the people here. That's really the idea. Let's see. Lulu says, do I have to pay the required school fees before I will be issued a visa? No, you don't. The only fee you have to pay is the SEVIS fee, and that's a $200 fee. That's in addition to the visa application fee. That SEVIS fee must be paid in advance. You need to present to us your original I-20 form, one that has the big F1 at the top of it. That needs to be the original form, signed by the school officials, signed by yourself. And that would show that you have paid the appropriate fees and are eligible now to be considered for a visa. Okay?
The next question we have, which is one we hear often, is about paying visa fees and not getting a refund even if you don't get a visa. And as Deb mentioned before, the fee is for the application and not for the visa itself. So it's not refundable. So you're paying that to apply for the visa, even if you don't get an actual visa issued.
Right. The process of reviewing the documents, interviewing people, verifying everything is an extensive process, and it is pretty expensive. So it takes a lot to do that, and we process so many applications. So know that it's not a fee for the visa; it is a fee to apply and to go through the interview process. Another question we have here, not really specifically to student visas, but sort of relevant. I want to travel to attend a conference in America. Any special requests, and you need deals with the requirements. You do not have to get a student visa to go to an academic conference. You can go to a conference. We have a lot of folks going to conferences at at Harvard, at Johns Hopkins, does a lot of medical conferences. Emory in Atlanta does a lot of medical conference. That's a general B visa if you're going for a week-long conference. We do encourage people to apply as early as possible for those. There's no special fee. Again, an officer might ask you how that conference is relevant for your work or your studies, or if you're presenting a paper. But there's nothing really special about having to do conferences and get to conferences. Let's see. The issue we're facing is paying the visa fees, not getting the visa, even when all documents are valid and complete. What's happening because the rate of decline and turn down has been massive these days. I think it may just seem like it's been massive because we've been issuing a lot of visas to folks. The important thing is to make sure that your application is complete as possible and that you present yourself as well as possible in the interview, establishing your credibility as a serious student, one who's going to be enrolled in classes full-time and give it their best effort to complete their degree and to be conscientious about that. The documents may very well be complete, but just because they're complete doesn't necessarily mean that the individual is qualified to be a student, and that is a decision made by the officer based upon the rules and regulations, the legal requirements, and there are very specific legal requirements that we must follow in making decisions. It's not merely a whim. Everybody's been really well trained, and there are very strong standards that we have to meet before issuing the student visas.
So it looks like our next question is from Curtis, who says, I have an admission from a university in the US that doesn't require me to have a GRE or TOEFL score. Can my visa application be granted? Absolutely. Those things are not requirements for a visa. I went to a school that didn't require a GRE, so I didn't know what the scoring system was like. That's something that you should be able to tell your consular officer, though, if they ask what your GRE score. Just explain that your school doesn't require it, and maybe some of the things that they did require for your application, if you had to write essays or if they had other tests that they required, if you were admitted because you had an extremely high GPA, or if you are a computer genius, whatever your qualifications are, but those tests are not required for your visa.
No, they're not. Now, if you've taken the test, and particularly if you've taken the test, it's useful to let us know that you took the test, because that builds the whole picture of being a serious student, that you've taken the time to take the test and to prepare, even if your school did not require it. So if you've taken it, certainly let us know. Let us know what the scores are, and we often look at people's test score results on the SAT or their TOEFL results, because that is good information to have, but it is not compulsory. It's not mandatory. Let's see, Emmanuel says, is it compulsory that one's sponsor has to be their parent? And what would you say in response to that, Alyssa?
It doesn't have to be your parents. I've seen sponsors who were uncles, who were brothers, who were maybe a private company, either where someone worked or that was sponsoring them for some other reason. The thing that's important, if it's not your parents, is that you can explain why that person would want to sponsor you. It seems like I would just want to know more if your uncle's sponsoring you. Did he sponsor your studies for your undergraduate degree if you're going for a master's program? Has he been involved in your life? Can you talk about what kind of work he does and why he has the funds to sponsor you? So it's definitely not required for them to be your parents, but that you can describe why that they would sponsor you and describe more about your financial situation.
Yeah, and particularly recognizing that it's only required to show proof of ability to pay for the first year, but we want to know that, okay, if your uncle's going to pay for your first year, and that's $25,000, the other 3 years are going to be $25,000 each. So you're talking about $100,000, and that's quite a bit of money. It's quite a bit of money, whether you're in the U.S. or Nigeria. So we need to feel confident that your uncle, your aunt, your brother or sister is committed to helping you all 4 years, and it's not going to just pay the first year and quit. Because students, though there are arrangements for students to do work study on campuses, you cannot work full-time, you cannot work off of the campus on an F visa. That is not allowable. So you have to be prepared to be able to pay for your education so that you can fully study. That's what you're there to do, is to study. Let's see. Why are applicants not given more time to respond, especially student applicants? For that, I can take that. We try to give you the time needed to respond. So you need to be focused. You need to be very specific about the information you're giving us. We've had student interviews that were both very, very quick, and student interviews where 5 minutes, 10 minutes, where the student has specific circumstances or questions that we need to try to get answered to make the determination. So the length of the interview is really dependent upon who you are as a student, what you're trying to tell us, and what the issues are. There is no set time limit that we have to follow. So it's whatever time is needed to make a good decision.
So the next question we have is from Kenneth, who says, why are people without previous travel experience denied a U.S. visa? So the first thing I will say is previous travel is not a requirement for U.S. visa. We do ask about travel a lot of time because it helps us know more about your personal history and how you might travel in the U.S. I know that I have issued visas to people who haven't traveled, and I have not issued visas to people who have before. So that's one thing that a consular officer might ask about during an interview, but it's not a requirement. And in general, travel experience can be a helpful question to ask because it gives you an idea of people's experience in other countries, what they travel like, if they travel for vacation or work, how long they stay, where their family is. So it's a relevant question, but it's not a requirement for a visa.
Right. No, it is not a requirement. Someone else just asked the question, do I need to come with my sponsor's bank statement? Yes, you do. Whoever is going to be paying the money for you to be in school, we need to see those bank statements. We need to see original bank statements. We need to not see copies. Also, for all the people, particularly those coming for Super Saturday, this Saturday, we are giving our student applicants a fraud warning. And this is a very important fraud warning. This, in fact, may be the most important thing we say in this whole time, I think, Alyssa, is that if you present us a bank document from your sponsor, whether it's a parent, an uncle, an aunt, a brother, sister, if you present us a bank document that is fraudulent, that will be determined. We review those documents. It will be determined. And if you present a fake document, you will be banned from ever getting a visa to the United States in the future. An F visa, a B visa, any sort of visa. Presenting a fake, made-up document is a very serious problem in the visa application process, and it will destroy your credibility for all time.
And it's something that you need to know. The reason that we tell people that in interviews is because you're taking responsibility for the information in that bank statement, even if it's someone else's.
Right.
So you need to be really sure that that information is correct and accurate and not fraudulent, so that you don't suffer the consequences.
Right. Because if it's a bad statement, the penalty doesn't go against the person that gave you the statement. The penalty goes against you as the applicant, and it's your future you're messing with. So this is a very important thing to be aware of. If someone's trying to convince you to give us something and they say, oh, those Americans, they're never going to know. They're never going to know. That's a very bad plan. So don't get caught up and do that. And we have been giving this warning now the whole student visa season, right? We've been doing a lot of student visas since May, and we see fake bank documents every single day. And those people's lives are very negatively affected by that. So don't do it. Just don't do it.
Our next question is, I'm a returning student scheduled to travel next week. My CIAC tracker is showing administrative processing. Today is the 10th business day. My flight is on Friday. And unfortunately, this is happening to a lot of people right now because we're getting kind of down to the wire. I know with student applications, they tend to be in administrative processing longer because we do check the bank documents. So unfortunately, we can't guarantee when someone's visa will be ready, but you should have some contact information on the white sheet that was given to you at your interview. If you do need to retrieve your passport for other travel, you can contact the phone numbers on that sheet. But unfortunately, we can't rush every student because we have several thousand right now that are waiting to be processed and probably in the same status as yours.
Right. And unfortunately, there's two things. One, we always tell people, don't buy your plane ticket until you have your visa in hand, because if you buy your plane ticket and you can't make that flight and you have to change it and pay the fees, we're not responsible for that. We're sorry, but that's a fee you have to pay. Secondly, as we started to reference at the beginning, would be if, say, Super Saturday is the 11th, and your I-20 form says you have to be in the United States by the 15th of August, but you're interviewing on the 11th. That's too tight. You're probably not going to get your visa in time to arrive in the United States by the 15th of August. So you do need to go back to your school, anticipating this, get a letter from your school saying, we understand that, you know, Susie Smith has not been able to get her visa in time. She's supposed to arrive August 15th. We're giving her permission not to arrive until August 20th, whatever that is. Because if your I-20 form says August 15th and you show up the 20th of August without that letter, you will be turned around at the border and put back on the airplane, because you must be there before the program start date, or you must have authorization from the school, the letter from the school saying that you can arrive late. So that's an important thing, and we're working like crazy to try to get everybody turned around, but there's a lot of people that we're dealing with. So what else?
There's a Super Saturday question.
Okay. One question I think we've already answered. Are there schools who don't require a TOEFL or an SAT score? Yes, there definitely are. It's nice if you've taken it and have those scores, but if your school doesn't require it, it's not a requirement. And then please can you tell me what you expect of me when I come for my F1 on Saturday the 11th? We've kind of been answering that, I think.
Yeah, proof of financial support, transcripts and grades, any scholarship info that you have, and just be prepared to talk about your academic plans, and if you have a sponsor, your relationship with the sponsor.
Right, right. And importantly about what you're going to do when you get your degree, where you want to work, what you want to do, how the degree is relevant for you, and how it's going to benefit you and your family when you come back. And that's whether it's a bachelor's, a master's, or a PhD. It doesn't matter which level degree it is. You need to be able to talk about what you're going to do once you have acquired this education. That's an important thing. Let's see. Emmanuel says, can one have more than one sponsor? Let's say my dad and my uncle are my sponsors. Will that be acceptable? Yes. Yes, that is certainly acceptable. You need to have original bank statements from anyone who's going to be your sponsor. And again, those original bank statements, if either one of them is fraudulent, that will be a big negative on your permanent record. In the United States, when you first go to school, grade school even, they tell you, your parents tell you, oh, Debbie, if you do something bad, this is going to be on your permanent record, and it will follow you forever. And so that's what the idea of fake bank statements does, is it's on your permanent record and it will follow you forever. So yeah, you can have multiple sponsors, and it's the combination. So say you have a scholarship, your dad's paying and your uncle's paying, that's fine. We need to see that the full tuition, room and board are going to be covered, and it's fine to do that with a combination. And again, as Alyssa said before, you know, what's the relationship with your uncle? Why is your uncle committed to helping to pay for this? Does that make sense?
So the next question is about reapplying after a denial. Basically, can you reapply immediately? You are able to reapply. That is, you have the right to do that. I would say if your situation hasn't changed, I would definitely pause and think about before you start reapplying. If you your funding situation hasn't changed, if you're going for the same degree, it might not be worth reapplying. But if something in your situation has changed, you're definitely able to do that. The only thing would be the wait time for an interview.
Right. And according to the embassy procedures, people who have applied for an F visa and been denied, either here or in Lagos, either one, in the last 6 months are not eligible to apply for an expedited or emergency appointment. So that is something to keep in mind, that if you have been denied within the last 6 months, you cannot apply for an expedited appointment. You have to take whatever the next appointment date, the regular appointment date is. And so at this point in the season, that most likely means that you're not going to be able to go in the fall semester. As tight as the interviews are right now, you're probably going to have to look at a January admission, January of 2019 admission. And that process then actually would give you time to reevaluate what you're doing, why you're doing it, and make sure that you're the strongest applicant possible. Okay. How do you know you've been banned? You've banned him from getting a U.S. visa. Okay. This goes back to what we just said, is that fraudulent bank documents are a serious problem, and that has serious long-term implications for your ability to get a visa.
If you have been found to misrepresent yourself, you will get a letter that says that. You will know that. You will be notified what section of immigration law you're ineligible under. So if you have misrepresented yourself in bank documents or some other way, you will know about it. It won't be a secret. So.
Right. It should be no surprise to someone. So you want to read the next question?
Yeah, the next question is, why do visa officers deny applicants due to their personal feelings? And I will say that that is not how it works. We work really hard to make decisions based on the information that we have. We do see a lot of people every day, and so we see a lot of patterns in people's applications, whether it's misrepresentation or
whatever it might.
Yeah.
Whatever
so,
it
and we
might
really
be.
are looking at the whole case of a person. It's not just has a person traveled, or just what subject are they studying, or who is sponsoring them. We're really looking at as much information about a person as we can. We have all the information from your application. We have the information that you bring in with you. We have your visa history, whether you've traveled, whether you've been to the U.S. on a different visa before. Or not. So we really are looking at a lot of factors, and it's not just our personal feelings.
Right. No, that's very true. We are required, we sign an oath when we become a consular officer that says that you will follow U.S. immigration law. That's the standard we're held to. We have weekly meetings here in our office to brief everybody on what the law is and what particular issues to look at. So we're briefed. We have documents that are guidelines for us that we go to, and we check if we have a question. Sometimes we'll do that while somebody's at the window if we're not sure about a particular situation. So it is not a feelings-based process. It is very much a legal process with legal standards that we as officers are required to follow, and we do our very best to do so. So that's an important thing to be aware of. It's not if you're tall, if you're short, if you're blonde, if you're young, if you're old, what you're wearing. None of that goes into it. So you can come in a t-shirt, or you can come in an evening gown. Either one, people have been approved and denied in both. You want to present yourself honestly and sincerely as a student, as a good student. So let's see. If a sponsor is an American citizen, for security reasons, you can't collect the bank statements. And what advice do you have? This is very true. We cannot verify U.S. bank documents. Again, in that case, if they're a U.S. citizen, if you have a letter from them stating what their income is, how much savings they have, what they're committed to paying to help you, Those things are all very useful, what their job is, what their relationship is, again, and we do apply and approve people who have U.S. citizen sponsors.
The other thing is any kind of information you have from your school that you've corresponded with them about how you're going to pay for your studies. I know I've seen some people, their I-20 will show, break down their tuition. Maybe they're paying a portion themselves. Maybe a parent is paying a portion. Maybe you have some scholarship, and maybe occasionally I've seen that somebody had prepaid, and it will break that all down. So as long as you can itemize that amount of money and demonstrate to us that somebody is sponsoring you and that they do have the funds available. Bank statements are what we like to see because we can verify those. But if they're not available, as much information as you can get to back up your sponsors.
Right, exactly. And again, you know, the documents must be valid and correct, and the final consideration always is, the first consideration always is, you're going to go as a student and study and come back home, and what are you going to do when you come home? And that you're not going to stay in the United States, so you're going to study and come back. And that's the determinant factor that we have to evaluate for all visas, B visas, student visas, whatever it is. Let's see here. It says, why do PhD students get only 2 years visas? I'm not sure that's all visas from Nigeria are 2 years limited. So in that sense, a PhD program, yes, might be 5 years, and the I-20 form, your F1 form might say that it's 5 years, and that's fine. But the visas that we issue are required to only be for 2 years. So then you need to renew, you need to come home, renew, go through the process. So if someone is working on a master's and PhD and they come back, again, they should bring their transcripts, show that they're making progress, have the discussion to be able to talk about what they're studying and how their work is going, and again, what they're going to do when they come home. So the 2-year standard is not meant to limit PhDs, it's just the standard limit.
The next question is, why is it even when all your documents are correct and valid, they deny you a visa for no reason? And again, that's kind of like the question about our feelings. You can have all of the documents and be denied because we're looking at the whole person and not just somebody on paper. If we could just look at papers, we wouldn't have to bring people in for interviews. So part of that is what we see when we interact with you during an interview. And so somebody can be, have all of their documents in order, have transcripts, and still be denied because of something that the consular officer sees in the interview, either in their documents or in the way that they're able to talk about their school. So it's not just documents that you're presenting, it's the whole picture again, but it's not just based on our feelings or for no reason.
No, it's very much the law. Here's an interesting question, which I think is real valid. It says, if you were denied a student visa when you were younger, and that stopped you from applying for a visa for vacation with your kids, would you still be denied? No, not necessarily. That B visa, tourist vacation visa, is a new application. It's unique. We look at the information again presented in your application form. The question is still the same. What are your ties to Nigeria? What what will bring you back home? What's your travel history? Where are you going and why are you going? All of those factors go into it. In terms of the standard is documenting again your ties, that you will use your tourist visa as it's intended to, and come back home. So no, a turn down for a student visa. You applied when you were 21 for a student visa, and it wasn't approved, and now you're 35 and you want to go and take your kids for vacation.
Yeah, we see that often, and that's another reason that we tell people, if your situation changes, to reapply, because maybe somebody was denied a student visa because they couldn't prove that they were qualified, or they didn't have the funds available, but then later their life circumstances have changed, their employment's changed, their family situation, other travel, they can demonstrate that they would travel well on a tourist visa even if they were denied for a student visa. So that definitely, you're eligible
each time. individually, each time individually. Another tourist question, which we're not really dealing with, what is the minimum bank balance for a tourist visa application? For tourist visas, we do not look at bank balances. We do not look at those bank documents. It's the interview process. Again, you need to be able to discuss your ties here at home in Nigeria and how you will use that tourist visa appropriately. So that's not a factor at all.
So it looks like we have a question. My sponsor is outside Nigeria and he sent an electronic statement of account. Could this be accepted? I know that we've looked at them before. So any evidence you have is really helpful to bring. If it's something, we might not ask for it, but if you have it available, that really helps if it's something that we need to see.
Yeah, ideally we need to have a printout of whatever it is. And then a question from Jude. Please, what do you mean by having ties to Nigeria? We want to know there, that's sort of a standard language, that people are going to come home after traveling the way they're supposed to. So say if one is going on a student visa, that you will go study, get your degree, come home, get a job here at home, get married, have a family, add to the community and the economy, build up Nigeria. You know, build up Nigeria and improve the situation here in your homeland. And there's lots of ways to demonstrate that. People demonstrate it in different ways every day. But the idea is that we have confidence that you will come home and will use the visa properly and return home, whether it's a student visa, tourist visa, whatever it is, and that you will not go and stay in the United States illegally.
And that you will use the visa appropriately too. That's under the same section of law as the ties and intent to return to your country, is that you'll use a visa appropriately. And for students especially, that means not working on a student visa. Because that's a legal requirement for a student visa, that's really, really important that you can demonstrate. And that's part of the reason we care so much about your finances, not only so you pay your tuition, but that you will be able to take care of your living expenses while you're there without having to work.
Without resorting to work, right? That's really very, very critical. And Emmanuel, thanks for participating, Emmanuel. We've had a couple of questions from you. It says, do you guys have a limited amount of visas you're allowed to issue in a month or a year? Nope, not at all. And as you can see from the numbers Alyssa gave earlier, we have about 12,000 students from Nigeria traveling and studying in the United States. That went up almost 10%.
And I suspect will be even more before the school year is out too.
Yes, exactly. So no, there are no limits. We look at people individually. They're qualified or not qualified based on how they present to us. And so if we have 100 people walk in and they're all qualified, then we're given 100 visas. If we have 100 people walk in and none of them demonstrate that they are qualified, then we give no visas. And there's no limit there.
Abisola says, is it true that some people get denied when they apply for student visas because they have never traveled outside the country before? And like we mentioned before, that's not a requirement. And I can tell you, I approved some students today who had never left the country before. So it's not a requirement. We will probably ask about it, might ask about it. And it helps us learn more about you and what your plans are like and maybe what you've traveled like before if you have. But not a requirement.
Right. And in terms of addressing that, because it's come up a couple of times, another good point I think that we should make is that there are people out there on the streets of Abuja who are selling fake visas and fake visa stamps. And again, if you spend your hard-earned money to buy a fake visa and a fake visa stamp, that is not a good thing. That is not credible. It will be found out. It will be discovered, and that will again go on your permanent.
No travel is definitely better than fake travel.
Yes, no travel is better than fake travel. Fake travel it will go on your permanent record, and that will not be good. So if somebody convinces you, tries to come up and convince you to spend your hard-earned money, just tell them no. Just tell them no. Let's see, please advise, what's the minimum age requirement for applicants who want to study for a Bachelor of Science, BSc, Bachelor's of Science, it would just be BS in the United States, a degree program in the United States. You know, we approved somebody not too long ago who was 16 going for a bachelor's degree, who was very qualified, very bright, very hardworking, and did a great job at the interview. We've approved people who are 35 going for a bachelor's degree. Same thing, your story has to make sense. What you want to do has to make sense and be credible. You have to be able to demonstrate it, talk about it. There's no requirement age for
if
any
the school accepts you. Since the first, the first step is getting into the school, if the school doesn't have a requirements for the minimum age for that degree program, then the visa does not identify.
Right. And students, people go to school in the United States at all ages. I mean, it's not relevant to the visa process, but the state I'm from in the U.S., our governor is a woman who's in her mid-50s, and she just completed her bachelor's degree a year ago because she started school, decided to drop out, get married, have some children, went back to work, and then went back and got her bachelor's degree at like 55.
And I will say that to our applicants who are maybe adults who have had a career and are going back to school, the only things I would say to you in preparing for your interview is to be able to talk about what you've been doing since you finished secondary school, or if you did start your studies, why you're planning to finish them now. You have lived more life than maybe somebody who's fresh out of secondary school, so you might have different questions for you in your interview.
Yeah, and you might, frankly, be better prepared than somebody who's maybe just a little younger. So either one. Let's see, can someone with a J1 visa apply for an F2 visa to accompany a spouse? That's a really technical question. I believe that is still possible. We would have to address that with that individual in their interview, I think.
But I will say that you can have different kinds of visas at different times because you're entering the U.S. to do a different thing. So there's lots of people who have a B1, B2 tourist visa and a student visa, and you just travel on different ones depending on why you're going to the U.S. So maybe if you go on a J1 to participate in a program and then you're going to return to the U.S. To live with a spouse who's in school, you can only use one at a time, but you can have multiple valid visas in your passport. So,
right. So I guess the short answer would be yes, but you still can apply to do that with a spouse. Let's see, what else can we tell folks that might be of interest to this student process? On Saturday, for Super Saturday, all of the consular officers will be wearing their college attire from the schools that they went to school, so you can get a feeling for the wide variety of schools we've gone to, some public, some private. People have different levels of degrees, so that'll be kind of fun. Rather than being in our business suits on Saturday, we'll be in our academic sportswear.
And how many students do we expect to interview on Saturday?
Right now, I believe we have appointments for 430 students, which is a lot. It may seem to you like student interviews are short, but student interviews do take longer than other interviews. So we appreciate everyone getting here early and on time for the security process. We will probably be interviewing on Saturday until at least 1 o'clock. So it could be a long day, so get something to eat before you come. We will try to be as efficient as possible. And over the next 24 or 48 hours, if all of the interview slots are taken, we will open up more, because we do recognize you guys that are going to go to school need to get through the process and get there as quickly as possible. So we are trying to be sympathetic to that.
And get you out on time.
And get you out on time, because it's important to us. We know what it's like. We've all been through school. We know if you're not there at the beginning of the semester, it makes it a whole lot harder as you go. And particularly as a foreign student coming in, that probably makes it a lot harder. But one thing, some other facts that you might want to be aware of is that about 50% of the students from Nigeria who are in the U.S. are undergraduate students. about a third of them are graduate students, and then we do have people on the OPT program after they finish their bachelor's degree or even their master's degree. They can go on an OPT program. So we do have students doing that. Most of the students who are going are in, of course, four-year institutions. 3/4 of everybody's in a full four-year college. And of those, most of those, about 3/4 again, are public universities, and about a third private. And then we have about a quarter of the students who are in the two-year associate degree program. So it's a wide variety of schools and programs and majors. And we're very happy when we are able to approve somebody who comes in and they know what they're doing, they can express it, they are going to be a credit when they come back, both to the U.S. schools that took them and to their families when they come back and get good jobs and contribute to the economy and contribute to building up Nigeria. And so we're very happy when we see students who are really, really good and that we can approve and know that they're going to go and use the visa, learn, study, work hard, and come back. And that's a good thing.
And most of what we see are the F1 students just going to usually university. But we do have some J1 exchange visitors, either doing professional programs, internships, and we do have some vocational programs as well, although we don't see quite as many of those as we do F1s. And there are some families traveling with students on F2s or J2s as well.
And you can take your family. Again, you need to be able to document credibly how you're going to be able to support that family in the United States while you're there. Most of the F2, the families going with students, end up being folks who are maybe in master's programs or doctorate programs, where the person has an assistantship, so that the university is paying them, to be there and have that assistantship. And those will generally be people who are a little older, a little more mature, getting that program, and may have a spouse and a child to take with them. And as long as everything is in order, we can approve those as well. So Super Saturday details will be this Saturday, August the 11th. People should show up bright and early to get through the security process. Whatever your interview time is, be sure you are not late.
Make sure that you're not nervous, that you're well rested. We're not trying to scare anybody. We just want to hear what your plans are, what you plan to do, and hopefully get you to school on time.
Yeah, exactly. And it will be, for those who haven't gone through a visa process before, as you come in and go through security, there's like 3 security process steps that you have to go through. And unfortunately, those are required. So, don't bring a lot of extra stuff with you that has to go through. You cannot bring your cell phone in. That's an important point, I think. You cannot bring your cell phone into the embassy. So if you have a document on your cell phone that would be relevant to this process, print it off beforehand and bring the paper copy. You can't bring your cell phone in. Wear comfortable shoes, have something to eat beforehand. You come in, you go through security. When you come into the consular waiting room, then you will go through the check-in process, where they make sure that your initial paperwork is in order, that you have an appointment, or that you have your photo, right? That's a good point. We don't want people turned around for bad passport, bad visa photos. It should be a plain background, head and shoulders. You need to show your ears. You show your ears, you need to show your forehead, your hair, recognizing that some people dress where they might have their ears and hair covered. For that photo, we need to see all of your face and shoulders. So be sure those passport photos are good. So you'll come, check in, all that gets scanned into the computer. Then we'll go through and fingerprint you. You'll get the fingerprinting. I promise it doesn't hurt to get fingerprinted. Then you will, fingerprinting is very quick. Then you will wait to be called up through the process. And we take, first come, first serve, earliest to latest, based upon your interview time. And we will try to make it as painless as possible. And hopefully everyone can present themselves well and be approved for their visas.
Thank you all for your really great questions today.
Yeah.
There were some good ones in there. We look forward to seeing you, maybe some of you on Saturday, maybe in the next couple weeks as you get ready to go to school.
And we appreciate your time and appreciate your interest in going to American University. And Rock Chalk Jayhawks. What school?
I've got nothing.
What school? Thank you. Bye-bye.